The Christmas invitation looked innocent until I reached the last sentence. Adults only. No children under any circumstances. I almost accepted it, until my 6-year-old son accidentally answered a family video call the night before Christmas. Behind my parents, I counted 3 children laughing around the tree, my sister's kids. My son smiled and asked, "Mom, why are they allowed to go?" Nobody answered him. My parents quietly ended the call. At that moment, something inside me broke. They thought I would simply stay silent. They had no idea Christmas dinner would become the last family gathering they ever controlled. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 31 years old, and I work as a financial consultant in Chicago. 3 years ago, I lost my husband to a sudden heart attack. Since then, my entire world has revolved around one person, my 6-year-old son, Noah. He's funny, endlessly curious, and somehow still believes Christmas is the most magical day of the year. Honestly, so did I, until last December. A week before Christmas, my parents mailed invitations for our annual family dinner. It had always been the biggest tradition in our family. Every year, everyone gathered around the same dining table, exchanged gifts, laughed over old stories, and watched the children tear through wrapping paper before dessert. This invitation looked ordinary until I reached the final sentence. Adults only. No children under any circumstances. I stared at those words for several minutes. When I called my mother, she explained they wanted one peaceful evening without noisy children. She insisted it wasn't personal and asked me not to make things difficult. Although it hurt, I decided not to argue. I told Noah we'd celebrate together at home instead. He looked disappointed but nodded. "It's okay, Mom," he whispered. "Maybe Grandma's just tired." The night before Christmas, we were decorating cookies when my phone suddenly rang. It was a family video call. Before I could answer properly, Noah excitedly grabbed the phone. "Hi, Grandma." My stomach tightened almost instantly. Behind my parents stood a beautifully decorated Christmas tree. Running across the living room were Olivia's 3 children, laughing, opening presents, and throwing wrapping paper everywhere. Exactly the kind of children my parents claimed they didn't want there. Noah smiled at first. Then his smile slowly disappeared. He looked back at me before asking the simplest question I'd ever heard. "Mom, why are they allowed to be there?" Nobody answered. My mother forced an awkward smile before quickly ending the call. The silence inside our kitchen felt heavier than anything I'd ever experienced. That was the exact moment I realized this Christmas wasn't about excluding children. It was about excluding my son. Christmas morning arrived with fresh snow covering the streets, but our house felt unusually quiet. No one never mentioned the video call again, yet I could see the question lingering behind his eyes. After breakfast, he carefully wrapped the small drawing he'd made for Grandma and Grandpa. It showed our whole family standing around a Christmas tree, all smiling together. "Can we at least give them this?" he asked softly. I couldn't bring myself to say no. We drove across town in silence. The closer we got to my parents' neighborhood, the tighter my grip became on the steering wheel. I wasn't going there to argue. I only wanted the truth spoken out loud. The moment we pulled into the driveway, I heard children laughing from inside the house. Noah heard it too. He looked at me without saying a word. When I rang the doorbell, my mother opened the door and immediately froze. Her smile disappeared the second she saw us standing there. "Emily, what are you doing here?" "I thought we'd drop off Noah's gift," I replied calmly. Before she could answer, Noah slipped past her and stepped into the living room. Everything stopped. My sister Olivia's 3 children were sitting on the floor surrounded by open presents. Christmas music filled the room while my father helped the youngest assemble a toy train. Everyone turned toward us in complete silence. Olivia slowly stood. "This isn't a good time," she muttered. Noah looked around the room before quietly asking, "I thought there weren't supposed to be any kids." Nobody answered. Finally, my mother sighed. They came unexpectedly. Before I could respond, Olivia rolled her eyes. "Mom, just tell them." My father lowered his head before speaking. "We wanted one peaceful Christmas, Emily. Olivia's children have always spent Christmas here. They're part of the tradition." The words landed harder than any shout ever could. Noah looked down at the drawings still clutched in his hands. So, I'm not part of the tradition? My father couldn't meet his eyes. Neither could my mother. At that moment, I realized the favoritism hadn't started yesterday. It had been quietly growing for years. This was simply the first Christmas my son was old enough to recognize it for himself. I knelt beside Noah and gently placed my hand on his shoulder. "Come on, sweetheart," I said quietly. "Let's go home." He nodded without arguing, though I could see tears forming in his eyes. Before turning toward the door, he carefully placed the folded drawing on the coffee table beside the unopened gifts. "Merry Christmas, Grandma," he whispered. The room remained painfully silent. Just as we reached the front door, my mother finally spoke. "Emily, don't be dramatic. You're making this much bigger than it needs to be." I slowly turned back. "No," I answered calmly. "I'm refusing to teach my son that being treated as less important is something he should smile through." Olivia crossed her arms. "Oh, please. You're acting like we committed some terrible crime." I looked at my parents instead of her. For years, I told myself maybe I was imagining the little differences. The missed birthdays. The canceled visits. The excuses. Today, you removed every doubt I had. My father rubbed his forehead. "We never meant to hurt Noah." "But you did," I replied. "And the worst part is, none of you even seemed surprised." I took a slow breath before continuing. "Starting next month, I won't be paying your property taxes anymore." My parents stared at me. "I also won't be covering your home insurance premiums or sending money every month to help with household expenses." My mother's face turned pale. "What are you talking about?" "I've quietly helped because I wanted you comfortable after Dad retired. I never expected anything in return except kindness toward my son." Olivia looked genuinely shocked. "You've been paying all that?" I nodded once. My generosity was never meant to purchase love. But I'm certainly not going to finance a family that tells my little boy he doesn't belong. My father stepped forward. "Emily, wait. Let's talk." "I've listened for years," I said softly. "Now it's your turn to think." I reached for Noah's hand. As we walked toward the car, he squeezed my fingers tightly. "Mom?" "Yes." "Did I do something wrong?" I stopped, looked him straight in the eyes, and smiled through my own tears. "No, sweetheart." The adults did. For the first time that day, I knew walking away wasn't giving up. It was protecting the person who mattered most. The weeks after Christmas were quieter than I expected. My parents didn't call. Neither did Olivia. For the first time in years, I wasn't sending money at the beginning of each month, and I wasn't checking to make sure every bill had been paid. I simply focused on Noah. Instead of talking about the Christmas he lost, we started creating new traditions. One Saturday, we baked cinnamon rolls together. The next weekend, we spent an afternoon volunteering at a neighborhood toy drive. On New Year's Eve, we watched fireworks from the roof of our apartment building with hot chocolate in our hands. Little by little, Noah started smiling the way he used to. One afternoon, while we were building a blanket fort in the living room, he looked at me and said, "I think our Christmas was actually kind of special." I smiled. "I think so too." Meanwhile, life wasn't nearly as peaceful at my parents' house. Without my monthly support, they suddenly had to adjust their budget. Property taxes arrived. Insurance payments became due. Repairs they'd postponed for months couldn't be delayed any longer. My father, who had always insisted they were managing just fine, finally admitted they were struggling. Olivia wasn't happy either. She had assumed I would continue helping regardless of what happened at Christmas. Instead, she found herself contributing more often, and resentment quickly replaced the confidence she'd shown that morning. Word about Christmas quietly spread through the family. Not because I told everyone. Because Noah innocently mentioned it during a cousin's birthday party. "I wasn't invited because Grandma said they didn't want kids," he explained. The room became uncomfortably silent. Several relatives later called me privately. None of them criticized my decision. Most were simply heartbroken that a 6-year-old had believed he wasn't welcome in his grandparents' home. A few weeks later, my aunt told me something that stayed with me. "Emily," she said gently, "children rarely remember every gift they receive. They always remember how someone made them feel." She was right. Money could solve bills. It couldn't erase the memory of one little boy standing in a living room, wondering why his cousins belonged while he didn't. Some lessons arrive quietly. Others arrive wrapped in consequences no one expected. Nearly 4 months passed before my parents finally reached out. My father called one Saturday morning. "Emily," he said quietly, "your mother and I would like to see you. Just us. No arguments. No excuses." For Noah's sake, I agreed. We met at a small cafe halfway between our homes. When I arrived, both of them were already waiting. They looked older than I remembered. My mother's eyes filled with tears the moment I sat down. "I'm sorry," she whispered. No long explanation. No attempt to defend what happened. Just those 2 words. My father cleared his throat. We kept telling ourselves we were treating everyone fairly. Looking back, we weren't. My mother nodded. We convinced ourselves that because Olivia's children had always been there, it was easier not to change traditions. We never stopped to think about how that would make Noah feel. I listened without interrupting. For the first time, they weren't trying to justify their choices. They were finally acknowledging them. After a long silence, I spoke. I didn't walk away because of one Christmas dinner. They both looked at me. I walked away because my son deserved to know that someone would always choose him. My mother reached across the table. "Can you forgive us?" I gently folded my hands together. "Forgiveness isn't the difficult part." "What is?" my father asked. "Trust." I took a slow breath. If Noah is ever going to have a relationship with you again, he must never wonder whether he's welcome. Both of them nodded immediately. "No more favorites," my mother promised. "No more conditions." A few weeks later, I agreed to meet them again. This time, we chose a community spring festival. There were no formal dinners, no assigned seats, no impossible expectations. Just music, food trucks, and children laughing beneath colorful balloons. My parents spent the afternoon helping Noah win stuffed animals at the carnival games. The smile on his face looked genuine again. As we walked home that evening, he slipped his small hand into mine. "Mom," he said, "today felt like family." I looked back once at my parents, watching them wave goodbye. Maybe relationships can survive painful mistakes, but only when love is finally given equally. That day, I realized something I hope Noah never forgets. Family isn't defined by shared blood. It's defined by the people who make a child feel loved, welcomed, and safe.